This episode is brought to you by Let's Productions. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. See you there.
You want to learn about CE5 and extraterrestrial contact? Download my new book, now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple, and 14 other platforms. Book authored by Donald Ledesma. CE5, Frequencies of Contact.
Alien Strand Podcast. Alien Strand Podcast.
What's up, guys? This is Mike Beavers from The Theory, and you are listening to Alien Strand Podcast, the dopest UFO alien podcast out there. And if you want to find out about me, just go on YouTube and search UFOs over UFO or The Theory with Mike Beavers. Stay tuned, guys.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Alien Strand Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Ledesma, and welcome to today's show. That's right. It's going to be a really, really cool one today. You know, I just like to talk about extraterrestrials and UFOs and alien encounters and all that good stuff that comes along with it. I hope you guys caught the commercial at the very beginning of this podcast. It's my new book. It's called CE5 Frequencies of Contact. You can get that on Amazon audiobooks. You can get it on Barnes & Noble. You can get it all over the place. I'll even throw a link. It's gonna say all my links after this podcast. You'll see it on here. Click on that and it'll take you straight to the book. And it's a really good guide on how to CE5. And it kind of breaks it all down for you. The definitions, everything. It's a good guidebook. That's what it is, basically, right? And it teaches you a lot about the frequencies of contact. Hello, yeah, you got to do that, man. I mean, you have to study the meditation part of it all, right? So you can connect to these celestial, whatever you want to call them, beautiful beings that are up in the sky sometimes, and there might be some really nice ones out there, and there might be some really nasty ones out there. I'm talking bad, ugly, do some really horrible things, but CE5 is basically a meditational kind of construct, right? Of what you do is you kind of your thought process, your frequencies. You're trying to connect with these extraterrestrials in a different dimension, really in reality, right? And you'll see a lot of these orbs flying around. You'll see, you'll take pictures, you'll take video, and this is a perfect guidebook for that, right? And it teaches you a lot about CE5, okay? So please download that book if you can. I really appreciate it. We want to spread that information out to as many people as possible because it's a great read, and on top of that you get to learn, right? And that's what we do here at Alien Strand Podcast. You get to learn. Right now you're listening to us only on audio. You can actually go to our YouTube. It's playing live on our audio there, I believe, and go check it out there. We are live on Spreaker. Give us a thumbs up if you go to our YouTube channel. Go hit us a thumbs up. Remember, the middle is still playing there for free, no commercials. Go check it out there. Just one thing I ask for, please give us a like and subscribe to that channel. This helps a lot of people start coming to the channel, and it helps it grow a little bit more, right? I mean, it's just a small channel. It's not very big. It's not like these, huge channels. Of course, we'd love to be, right? Just like everybody else. But it takes you guys to kind of help make it spread out a little bit more, right? And if you like what I'm doing here, give me a thumbs up. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing for Alien Strand. And like I said, there's no I in team with Alien Strand Disclosure Project. Catch all of us there. Go to alienstrand-ufo.com or go to alienstrand.com and you can actually report a UFO there if you want, and make sure fill out the whole form that we have there. I'm going to put a link on there soon so that way you guys can go ahead and fill out that form if you'd like, or reach out to our representatives and they'll fill out the form for you as they're asking you the questions, right? If you got pictures, videos, usually it'll take pictures, videos, you're going to have to share those on a different email file, all right? But anyway, if you want to get a hold of me, reach me at 361-245-8000 if you want to be on the show, okay? So today's podcast, I'm just trying to, talk about a lot of things that happen in the news, right? And, I'm on social media. I'm all over social media. I don't care where I'm at. Social media is social media to me, right? And I use a lot of it to spread the word of Alien Strand. I don't care if it's what kind of social media platform it is. I'm on it, man. I don't care what it is, because I want people to know the different side of ufology. And if you're new to ufology, well, welcome to ufology. And, these things that we're trying to do here is we're trying to educate people a little bit about ufology and what happens to folks afterwards or during a alien abduction, right? And when we're trying to do that is trying to get you to understand as we're telling these stories, right, about UFOs and aliens. Some people might look like aliens, right? And I don't know if you've seen this all over social media, but this poor woman, Madonna, okay? Let's just go ahead and talk about that now, right? So, yes, she's had some facial construction. Yes, she kind of looks like an alien to me, right? And, how do you, not see the stuff that's coming off there? Poor girl. I saw an interview with Pink. She's an amazing artist, a musical singer, vocalist, everything. And she says, you ought to just appreciate what she gave us all. In other words, as far as her music, her talent, everything that she did, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do, right? And, of course, everybody was like, back in the days in the 80s when I was a teenager in the 80s, young kid, and then all of a sudden, all her music came out, we had like Vogue and all that good stuff started coming out, right? And there we were dancing and dancing and dancing, to her music, right? That's just a little background music. But, they were doing that as, we were just kind of enjoying her music back in the day, right? Okay, and now I know people get famous and they do these strange things to their faces, and hey, it is what it is. You're trying to be young, that's cool. Do you, boo. And that's what I try to say as, people out there are still trying to vogue, right? I mean, hey, why not? Let's vogue. I'm dancing right now. Let's vogue, man. Come on, I'm voguing. Come on, put your hands up in the air, start doing them side to side, turn your left, turn right, up and down. Let's vogue, man. And let's just go ahead. I just love her to death. I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. But hey, why not, right? So let's kind of leave people alone, as far as that, and not make fun of what they are today, but let's appreciate all the work and the artistry that they've done in the past, right? So, and I know I got off the UFO subject, but I just see a lot of strange things happen in ufology, right? And there's been a lot of different stories out there of extraterrestrial contact, right? And I am writing another book. There's another book coming out. It's going to be within maybe 2 months from now. I'm just getting into it. It's probably going to be like 18, 19 chapters. And this is going to talk about extraterrestrials from the beginning of time to what people experience and the outcome, right? Not just their stories, but the actual definitions. And I'm going to get into depth of the universal experience, right? Of how they came to be, everything like that. And it's going to be, everything's like this is going to be in my book. And I'll let you know when that new book will be coming out here, probably in a few months. But I am in the process of writing this. And the only reason I'm doing this is because, people do experience some really strange things, not just by CE5ing and getting excited in doing these CE5 events and protocols, right? But it's the experience of actually witnessing a extraterrestrial, right? And that's the strange thing, because these things are not going to always look, they're going to have human characteristics, right? In other words, I've never seen a video of an alien with 2 heads, 4 eyes, 6 legs. They're always going to have this human characteristic. I don't care if it's a reptilian or the human looking ones, the Palladians, these Nordic looking ones. And then of course the grays from Zeta Reticuli, and these things, are going to have 1 head, 2 eyes, 2 ears, almost a nose, something to breathe, and a mouth. They're going to have 2 arms, a torso, legs, feet, things to stand on, right? So they're all going to have these humanistic characteristics, right? And this is what I believe, that the universal connection is the connection of us all, right? Because if not, they would just to me, it would be a totally different thing, more like a species, right? Of let's just say something that's in our oceans, right? Like an octopus, right? 8 legs or whatever, right? A crab or a lobster, right? So that's totally different, right? Than what you would see as an extraterrestrial making contact with a human being or a person, right? In other words, it has some sort of intellect. It has some sort of knowledge. It has some sort of a living organism and a consciousness, really, in reality, of what they are and what they can be, right? So these are the things that the traits that we look for in extraterrestrials and extraterrestrial contact. Like most of the people always see the smaller grays, 3-footers, things like that. Most of these gray stories that I have been reading and studying and researching are 3 feet. 4 feet. They're not the 6 foot. You rarely hear about the 6 foot, 9 foot tall grays, which supposedly these things that are that tall are the actual dominant species of the gray, and the small to 3-4 footer one is the actual clone of the gray, right? So the tall ones, the slim gray, are the elders, right? They're more like 600. They lived up to 600 and 900 years of age. So, and this is what goes on through this research that I've studied with books in the past and people that have told these stories, and even our own behind the veil, if you will. These back engineered, programs that have met these, extraterrestrials and know their history, right? Linda Howe's a great one to talk to a lot of these naval soldiers and that have come out about these things that they saw in Antarctica, right? I did a podcast about it on our Patreon page, right? So if you go to our Patreon, you'll see something there. I'm actually recording another one for Patreon tonight. But I mean, this what I'm talking about is these extraterrestrials and how we are actually making this contact of what they are, right? And there's a small story here that I'm going to read to you. This is it's called the Don Anderson abduction case that I saw today, and I'm just going to read it to you so that way you can kind of get a little bit more inside depth of what happened to this person. So in 1984, a 24-year-old Don Anderson of Spanish Fork, Utah, woke up to see a gray alien inside of his bedroom, right? It says, taken away his 4-year-old son. So Don leaped out of bed and informed the gray that they were going to take his son. He says he wanted to join them. He says that the gray agreed. Both Don and his son were taken on board of the craft and were greeted by a female human-looking ET who gave them a tour of the craft. The ET informed Don of several events which would soon occur in his personal life. Don and his son then were returned, right? So this is, the guy wakes up, he sees these things waking up, trying to take his son, and he says, I want to go with you. I mean, that's, to me, it's a little strange, right? I mean, if that was me personally, I would have probably, freaked out and probably went into daddy mode and protector mode, right? At that point, right? But we don't know this guy's background, right? We don't know if he's had interactions with these things already before. This is what it sounds like on the beginning of the story. So there's a possibility that he's had interactions with these things and wanted to go on this trip or wanted to see this event unfold in front of him with his son, right? So I'm going to go on. It says the event caused a radical shift in Don's life. He recognized the Gray as a friend, a teacher. And then he remembered having an encounter with him before. Here we go. In fact, several bizarre events which Don had ignored, denied, or explained away now. Suddenly he says, this makes sense. And he realized that he had been experiencing UFO contact his entire life. Right? Then he remembers being visited and taken as a young boy. He remembered seeing a UFO, then the Gray at age 10, then being taken aboard a craft and taught how to perform telekinesis and about all the alien technology. He's had missing time at the age of 14. Now it's revealing itself, he says. He had to be an extensive onboard UFO encounter in which he was taken beyond the Earth and taught by the extraterrestrials. He even remembered a pre-life encounter during which his Gray alien guide showed him his mother giving birth to him, right? Wow. See, it's like they paint these images in your mind as these things are moving with you in your life, right? So this is a strange entity as it is, but they are Grays. He keeps saying they're Grays, right? So Don, who had been religious, now realized that he was in contact with extraterrestrials. This began a long life search for answers. He also began experiencing a wide variety of paranormal events, including precognition, out-of-body experiences, communication with spirits, and more. And now, of course, with more UFO encounters, right? So they've actually opened up his mind for him, if you really think about this, and really taught him how to dive into consciousness and how to dive into subconsciousness and dive into the dimensional world, really, in reality. Because if he's making contact with spiritual beings, he's able to do this in a different dimension, right? Because you can't just stand there and talk to a spirit or anything like that without having that entity jumping into your dimension or you jumping into its dimension, right? It's one or the other. And they probably do coexist on top of each other like a blanket, let's just say. It's like having the same blanket. Like, let's just say 8 layers of blanket. It's exact same blanket layered on top of each other, but each one has a different meaning, right? A different area, a different place, right? These are dimensions. It's about the best way I can explain it to you. So he says he went camping with some friends, also UFO contactees, not far from the famous Skinwalker Ranch, hoping to initiate contact with praying mantis ETs. To the amusement of Don and his friends, a huge UFO showed up, followed by several mantis-looking ETs. They culminated in a long, profound onboard encounter during which Don's communication with a praying mantis aliens, who again gave him information about his personal life, showing him many strange and wonderful things on board this craft. And it wasn't long before the encounters occurred again. On one occasion, Don visited by a familiar human-looking ET who cured him of a chest cold, he says. On another occasion, he was taken on board and treated for a heart problem. Wow. So at this point, the story deepens just a little bit, and it might just start getting a little darker, because here's where he grabs the attention. So Don encounters and attracted the attention of the U.S. military, who threatened him not to talk about his experiences. As a result, Don decided to go public. He spoke at conventions, began doing interviews, writing about his experiences. He even put together a website called Path of Shabilia to share the spiritual information he learned from the hands of the ETs. Shabilia can be translated as wisdom of the ancient ones, right? And it says Don's case is more extensive than most. He has worked hard to understand the encounters and learn from them, and to share the wisdom he has been given. He says that while people are very interested in the physical aspects of his encounters, and it's spiritual information that is most important, and the reasons he decided to go public, right? So, and that's pretty much the story and end result of this small segment that I was giving here to you guys today. I want you guys to understand that what this gentleman went through from the very beginning, and then his eyes opened up because for some reason his own self-consciousness blocked that whole area out of his life. Like he had a mind block of some sort. And then once they came back to take his son, the mind block disappeared. And then he started remembering and regressing, right, himself. So it wasn't like some, psychologist or anybody giving him some kind of regression therapy. He actually did it on his own. Something clicked and opened up inside of his consciousness, right? He was awake. Learning about spiritualism at the same time, right? So in other words, these creatures, grays he called them, but they were like insects, praying mantis looking things. They were actually giving him spiritual guidance, right? And they were helping him heal, like he talked about, like a common cold. They helped his heart problem, right? And this is the strange thing about this story, that doing these podcasts and doing these stories all this 6 years that I've been doing it as far as the podcasting. But my stories go further back. The difference on this story to me is that the strangeness of them healing him from something, right? I've heard one or two stories, not very many. I'm going to say maybe about 3%, 4% have some kind of a healing property in their lives that changed and made them into who they are today or who they were, right? And it gave them a longer lifespan, just to say. And this story does that, and it has that property in it to where they're helping him have a longer lifespan, right? And maybe he was meant to be something or to give the information out to people, because even though he was threatened, he still continued on his quest without stopping. So there was a basic narrative for him, was planned or pre-planned, right? Showing a past life of him, even of him being born, right? Showing him things of future to come, right? Now, the strangeness of that is they kind of opened his eyes in a sense to where they gave him a positive outcome. So his was not a negative outcome of it. His fearfulness of them was at a 0%, the way this story is put together, right? So the fear is a zero factor, right? So just like the story in Africa, right? When that UFO that landed in that schoolyard, right? Everybody talks about that. When these beings stepped out, they had these big black eyes, right? And some of them even had like almost like hair. They said almost like black hair. It was kind of strange. But they were giving these images of destroying our planet, right? How we were destroying ourselves. And whether they were, and then some of them even had different images of the planet being destroyed. So it was a catch-22 if you kind of think about it, right? So what is it? We're destroying our planet, or are you going to destroy it, right? And on that other story. And that one kind of had like a 50-50 positive outcome, right? In other words, take care of your planet. This story had more of take care of yourself. And had him dive deep into his spiritualism, right? The paranormal side, right? What does that? So those are the things that makes this story very rare, very non-common, because of what he experienced in that short time, or maybe a longer time, because I mean, this happened in 1984. So, which means, and he was 24 years old at the time. So if it happened to him as a teenager, that means like in 1974, everything started happening for him. Because he talked about being like a 10 or 14-year-old kid, right? So this was 10 years before that. And then they go to Skinwalker Ranch to go try to experience something around that area, and they do experience something, right? So this is what makes this a kind of rare story, but it's like a gem in a sense, because it has a positive outcome on his story. Even though he was thrown different obstacles of don't go forward, getting blocked through our governments, and able to continue on his research and continue on communicating with these things. And I think that's the best thing overall that he could have ever done, is to come out of it in a positive outcome, right? Because most stories and most research that I've done on people, even on my films, is that not all of everybody has a positive outcome, right? There's still some demons kind of trapped inside because of the fear, the stigma, for coming out, for telling their stories. And then there's some that have made peace with it, right? So, which is this story here. Seems to me like he's made some sort of a peace with it, had a positive outcome of it, right? And that's the best thing that I could think of if you've had an encounter. And if you're ready to speak to somebody about it, please do. Speak to somebody that's open-minded, not somebody that's closed-minded. Mind you, okay? Because this is the difference. When you speak to somebody that's closed-minded, all you're going to get is rejection, and then they're going to stigmatize you, okay? So don't do that. Talk to somebody that's open-minded, somebody that's in ufology, right? Somebody that knows these things. Like Alien Strand Disclosure Project. We do not turn anybody away. We sit there and listen to your stories if you want to tell it to us. We keep it confidential if you want it confidential. We help you through the process, right? And that's what this next book is going to be. It's going to help you understand this whole process of what happens to people and the breakdown to the healing that comes afterwards, right? So just make sure when you're ready to tell your story, be positive, stay focused, be vigilant, push the trolls down to the floor because you're going to get some trolls. We do it all the time. And believe me, the trolls already know who we are, and they won't do it anymore because they know that we fight like a pack of wolves for our people, our people that we're protecting, right? So just remember that we're here for you, right? And I'm glad this gentleman was able to get his story out and tell people exactly what happened to him and now his son, right? Which is so cool about this story. And like I've talked about, generations. It passes through the generations. And who knows that maybe his grandfather or great-grandfather or maybe way before that may have had some kind of interactions with these extraterrestrials. Hey, you never know. They follow through the bloodline. And that's a generated fact that we've noticed through the data, right, that we have. And when you do make a report, please give all the information as possible, times, dates, your ethnicity, everything that you have on this encounter. We need to know everything, every single thing that happened, second to second, point to point that you can remember, because everything is crucial for information on disclosure, right? Because that's what it is. We're disclosing everything that's happening to people around the world, not just in one part of the area, all over the world. And everybody lives in this whole world, right? So let's make sure that we do this and we do this right. Well, that's the end of my short podcast today. I hope you guys enjoyed it and enjoyed the information that I gave you today on aliens, right? And the encounters that people go through, even in the past. It was a past story, right? So, great story, by the way. Great story. I really dug that one, man. That was a really cool one. And I'll have more to give to you as well. I'm just going to be doing a lot more audio podcasts. If you want to go back and listen to them, you can listen to here on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts. You can even ask Alexa, she'll play some Alien Strand podcasts, right? And if you want to go back to the days and just start voguing, well, let's just start voguing, man, because I'm voguing right now. I just love the 80s, man. I'm glad I was an 80s kid, because I could just do this all day long and vogue and vogue and vogue. Yeah, all right, man. So I just had to throw that out there for you guys. All right. So anyway, you guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night.
CE5, an extraterrestrial contact. Download my new book, now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple, and 14 other platforms. Book authored by Donald Ledesma. CE5, Frequencies of Contact.